Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the Cryptoverse. Today, I want to just talk about what I believe to be a very large misallocation of capital in the Cryptoverse. So, this is not going to be as much of a technical video like normal. So, we're going to take a detour. Don't worry, I'm not going to really be talking about the news. Um, but I do want to at least express a few thoughts. So back in 2021, 2022, we sort of talked back then about how, Bitcoin dominance was really low and how it was likely going to go up for a while, right? For a while. And it has. We've seen dominance go from 38, 39% all the way up to 64%. Now, a lot of people view that as a bad thing. That's a good thing, right? This is the cryptoverse healing itself from all the crazy stuff that was going on over here, right? All the crazy stuff. Just like this was the cryptoverse healing itself. There's a lot of people that keep prematurely calling for alt season, but you should remember that historically, it's not like we have a lot of data points, but historically, these are all Bitcoin pairs. Historically, alt season occurs after alt Bitcoin pairs go to 0.25, right? So when the market cap of altcoins is equivalent to about a quarter of Bitcoin's market cap, that's where alt season usually begins from. And ever since 2021, right, people keep calling for alt season, but we just see altcoins bleed against Bitcoin, right? They just keep bleeding. Every rally is sold off, and every rally is essentially just another failed breakout attempt by alt Bitcoin pairs. Don't worry, I'm not talking about your alt. So, whatever comment you were writing, you can go ahead and delete that because I'm not actually talking about your altcoin. So, this has been a healing process for the cryptoverse. Remember, alt season doesn't occur historically until all Bitcoin pairs are down here, and they're still not down there yet. So, on one hand, you have Bitcoin dominance, which is doing what we thought. We said, look, dominance is likely going to go up until quantitative tightening is over. And it's been going up. And it's not like it was rocket science to say that. It was just to say, look, guys, last cycle, that's what happened. And I'm not suggesting it has to happen the exact same way. But so far, by staying bullish on Bitcoin dominance for all these years, because QT hasn't ended, you've been on the right side of the Bitcoin dominance train. And it's been really easy riding that Bitcoin dominance train. But I want to talk about what I think is the misallocation of capital. And I'm not suggesting that Bitcoin dominance needs to go down right now. That's actually not what the video is about. So if you're hoping that that's what I was going to say, I'm going to let you down. But why should today be any different than any other day? What I think we should talk about in terms of the misallocation of capital in crypto and malinvestment is that essentially there's two sectors of the asset class that are getting all of the attention, and everything in between is getting none of it, right? Absolutely none of it. So on one hand, you have Bitcoin, which makes a lot of sense. Bitcoin leads the bull market, right? Not the altcoins. People think that altcoins lead the bull market because people join in mania phases when Bitcoin dominance is going down. So they always refuse to believe that Bitcoin dominance could ever possibly go back up, right? And they refuse to believe that that Bitcoin could lead the bull market. But that's the case, right? That's what normally happens. So Bitcoin's getting a lot of attention, as it should. If Bitcoin's not here, then I think the entire asset class would, essentially just cease to exist. Now, a lot of people are going to argue with that. That's fine. If Bitcoin fails, I think they all fail. So I wouldn't be rooting for the failure of Bitcoin. But what I would say is that if everything else fails, that doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin fails. Okay, so think about those two things. So on one hand, you have the Bitcoin dominance train, which is the train that I've been on for the last few years, as I'm sure many of you have joined in on. Now, maybe it took people a while to get on that train. Maybe instead of joining it at 38, 39%, you joined it at 44% or 48% or 51 or 55. Maybe you didn't join it until 60%. Who knows? But that was one of the trains to get on. The other area that a lot of people have focused on in the cryptoverse is the exact opposite, right? They focused on the meme coins, right? Which is interesting because meme coins in and of themselves, theoretically, over a longer period of time, will asymptotically go to zero against Bitcoin because they don't actually offer any value. And I know a lot of people are going to push back against that idea, but the one thing that you should look at for every guru out there calling for meme coin super cycle nonsense, if you show them the chart of others divided by Bitcoin, which is, things outside of the top 10 divided by the market cap of Bitcoin, it's just been going down for years and years and years and years, right? Now, it could bottom soon. I don't know where the bottom is. I know that last cycle it bottomed about a month before quantitative tightening ended for others Bitcoin. Now, ETH Bitcoin and I think Total 3 Bitcoin bottomed a month later, but others Bitcoin actually bottomed about a month before QT ended, and so I do remember that. But you have a lot of people, I think, getting duped into believing this is a meme coin super cycle when that could not be further from the truth, right? Now, the people propagating those narratives have all the incentive to propagate those narratives because a lot of them are the ones profiting from the idea, right? Profiting from getting their followers to believe that it is, in fact, a meme coin super cycle and that the meme coins will just continue to go up. But what's actually happening is that the lower market cap alts are just bleeding to Bitcoin collectively. Now, look, any critic of my views here, they're just going to say, well, if you pick out this meme coin and that meme coin, that's why you're wrong. There's always a few exceptions to the rule. But ask any of them to explain this chart and how this fits in with the idea that it's a meme coin supercycle, and I don't think they'll be able to, right? They'll just say, well, there's a few here and there that go against your narrative, therefore Bitcoin dominance isn't important. So on one hand, you have investors that have been on the Bitcoin dominance train because they see the value in the cryptoverse. A lot of it is with Bitcoin. And then you have other people that scoff at that idea and they want to get rich now, right? They want to get rich quick. And so rather than allocate money into, say, Bitcoin, what they instead do is they put it into meme coins with the hopes of getting rich. And they go into the trenches, as they say, and they try to make money, and some of them do, but the vast majority of them do not. And, we go through the cycle where influencers will launch these meme coins, they'll shill them like crazy, they'll act all big and bad as they're going up, and then as they go down to zero, they get quiet about them, and they stop talking about them, and they wish that everyone would forget that they talked about them. And in order to distract from that, they launch a new one. Or they, latch on to a new one that's going up. And then everyone gets distracted with that. And then you zoom out. And you're like, well, hell, others Bitcoin never stopped going down, right? 75, 76% down. This is altcoins are down 75% against Bitcoin, right? I'm not talking about the US dollar. I'm talking about Bitcoin. So essentially what you have right now is you have on one end, you have people launching meme coins and investing in those and calling it a meme coin super cycle. And then you have the other end of this, which is Bitcoin dominance train. So you have people over there, right? And as this goes on, right, as these lower highs come in, more and more people pivot from being over here to being over here. It's a slow process, right? But it's happening, right? They pivot from here to here. Now, some people pivot from here to here because they see people in the meme coin market and they see some meme coins going up and they decide they want a piece of that and they go over there. What usually happens is they get wrecked and they just come right back over here, right? And so what ends up happening is that Bitcoin dominance just keeps slowly going higher despite everyone thinking that it's going to stop. Because quantitative tightening never actually ended, right? Despite what people thought, right? It never actually ended. And so the Bitcoin dominance train hasn't even necessarily ended itself, right? We're only going to know much later on when we look back. But there's an issue with this, right? There's an issue with this. The two things, the two assets, or the two sectors of the cryptoverse that are getting all the attention are Bitcoin, as it should. As it should. I mean, Bitcoin should get most of the attention, you know? I misspelled dominance here, so let me just go ahead and fix that. But most of the attention should go to Bitcoin, because without Bitcoin, everything else is probably not going anywhere either. And then the meme coins are getting the other attention. But I would argue that there's something in between here. Now, if you're a Bitcoin maxi, which many people say that I am, which I don't really think I am, but a lot of people say that I am because I talk about Bitcoin dominance all the time. If you're a Bitcoin maxi, then you would say everything besides Bitcoin is a meme coin, right? Everything. And so why speculate as to what is a meme coin and what's just pretending not to be a meme coin, right? That's the argument, right? Well, there's utility coins and there's meme coins. But again, a lot of people would just say, well, a utility coin is just a meme coin pretending to be something that it's not. And you could argue that a lot of people just kind of decided to give up on pretending to launch something that's useful and then just coming out and saying, hey, we're just going to launch a meme coin. That way there's no expectations. I don't necessarily believe that completely. I think what sort of has happened is that everything in between this has gotten, put aside. And I think the reason for that, there's a couple of reasons. I think that this cycle, we haven't really focused on what we normally focus on in crypto cycles, right? I mean, I put out a video not that long ago saying, why does this cycle feel different? I mean, Bitcoin's it's not at 100K right now, but, it's at 95K rate. Why does this cycle feel so different than other cycles? And one of the reasons is you look at like the social interest, it's still really low, right? I mean, at this point in 2021, the social risk was at like 0.8 to 0.9. Today, it's at 0.2 to 0.3, right? So retail really never came back this cycle like they did last cycle, at least not yet. And I was thinking about this a lot, and I was thinking, why has this been different in terms of interest and whatnot? And one reason could just simply be that quantitative tightening never ended, right? When QT ended last cycle, it occurred in September of 2019, and that's about the time when social risk started to go back up. So you could argue that whenever quantitative tightening ends, that's when social risk might start to actually go back up, right? And I could be on board with that. I mean, that could make a lot of sense. But there's another thing that's kind of bothered me this cycle that has been different than other cycles, and that's that, and I don't even saying it's the Cryptoverse's fault necessarily. What it is, I think, is that this cycle, instead of a lot of people focusing on building crypto projects and trying to improve society and trying to find utility, right? Whether it's found or not is another question, but like trying to find utility, that hasn't really been the focus. I'm not saying no one cares about it. There are projects that do. It's just not a lot of people care about those projects. They care about Bitcoin and they care about meme coins. That's it. So everything in between just gets left behind, more or less, in terms of interest in crypto. And so it's got to be very discouraging for developers to see this, right? If you're a developer in crypto, why are you going to go slave away for 3 years just to watch a newly minted meme coin give your entire returns on a Tuesday afternoon? Of course, it'll probably go to zero, but that's what investors are chasing, right? They're chasing the very quick move that they can capitalize on. They're trying to get in really early, sell a few hours later, and be done with it, right? As a developer, it's got to be very discouraging to see that. So I think to a large extent, there hasn't been as much development this cycle as there have been in other cycles. I think there's been a lot less development. And I think there's two reasons. One reason, as an industry, we haven't rewarded that stuff. It hasn't been rewarded at all. And again, if you're a maxi, none of this stuff is going to make sense to you. I mean, you're just going to say, and I'm not even unsympathetic to your view, right? I'm not. I actually understand that view. But my point is, if you do believe there's something in the middle, right, where that stuff in the middle could theoretically do well at some point in a market cycle, I think that one of the reasons is, as an industry, investors have not rewarded those projects. They've rewarded the meme coins and Bitcoin. But again, Bitcoin should be rewarded. It's the meme coins that I think have stolen the spotlight. And a lot of people would say, well, the meme coins are doing the best. That's not true. I mean, Others Bitcoin, as I just showed, is 75% down against Bitcoin. I mean, it's 75. Others is down 75% against Bitcoin over the last 3.5 years. It's not a meme coin super cycle. I don't care whatever net narrative the influencers are trying to show you. And I'm sure a lot of people will sort of clamp back and say, well, he just missed out on this meme coin. A lot of those people are the ones that launched them, right? I mean, like, they're incentivized to say that kind of stuff, right? They want to just, you know, make you believe that it's a meme coin super cycle, even though you would have just been better off, for the most part, buying Bitcoin over the last few years. That doesn't mean Bitcoin's going to go up forever. It's not, right? We could talk about, are we going to have a right translated cycle? Is it going to be a left translated cycle? I don't know yet. I don't think we have enough data yet. But there's another thing that I think could be affecting this, and it's not just what investors have rewarded. It could be due to the fact that in 2023 and 2024, there was a lot of regulatory scrutiny on the cryptoverse. So a lot of people were not incentivized to build in crypto. And why should they? They're probably too scared they're going to get sued by the SEC. So you have all this regulatory uncertainty. And I know that deregulation is potentially here, but that doesn't change the fact that over the last 2 years, we haven't seen as much development as we have in prior cycles. One of the things that I was thinking about is that a lot of times in cycles, and you could nitpick this and come up with easy counterpoints that I would even agree with. But I feel like if you think back to 2015 and 2016, or you think back to 2020, right, and 2019, in sort of the early days of those bull markets, a lot of us were not sitting around wondering when retail was going to come back. I don't think a lot of us even thought about that, right? We weren't sitting here thinking like, well, when's retail going to come back? What we thought about was what's being built in the cryptoverse, right? What is the next thing to invest in? Is it DeFi? Like, what is it? Like, what's the next thing? That's what we were talking about back then. Today, it's not like that, right? Today, it's not like we're not chasing the latest things in the same way as we were back then. We're not looking at the development of crypto. The focus this cycle has been one thing and one thing alone. And I'm not saying no projects are developing. I'm just saying that the focus of investors has been one thing and one thing alone. Right? And it's not development. And so, because of that, right? Because of the fact that developers aren't as incentivized to develop, and because market participants aren't focused on that sort of the market, then you essentially just have people focused on when retail's going to come back. So what's the one thing that we've been focused on this cycle? If it's not development, it's just getting crypto in front of more people. That's what this entire cycle has been about, right? The entire cycle has just been about, how do we get crypto in front of more people? And it even with Bitcoin, right? It's the spot ETFs, the strategic Bitcoin reserve, and influencers shilling meme coins and claiming they're doing a good thing for the space by shilling meme coins and bringing people back to the cryptoverse. But the problem with the meme coin stuff, is that if you bring people back to the cryptoverse under the illusion that you're doing them a favor by getting them here, and then they're immediately rugged by a meme coin, they're not going to stay. This is exactly what's been happening, right? Every time the social risk spikes, the meme coin stuff starts to take off, and then social interest goes back down as the meme coins get rugged. So what happens is the people that left in 2021 that got rugged back then, they come back and only to find the meme coin market in a worse position than what they left it as in 2021, right? So they just don't stay. You can argue, right? The meme coin shillers can argue all they want that they're doing the industry a solid by shilling meme coins to their millions of followers. But if their followers are coming and getting rugged within the first 48 hours, they're not going to stick around, right? They're just going to leave. And you can see that. So in 2019 and 2020, I don't think I thought one time about when retail is going to come back, right? The cryptoverse just built and developed. And maybe the Fed printed $6 trillion, get off my back, I know. But eventually people came back. And yes, people were stuck at home. But in 2017, people weren't stuck at home and retail came back. But you could argue there was a different focus that cycle, right? It wasn't just how do we get crypto in front of more people? It was what's being built in the cryptoverse. That was the narrative of 2016 and 2017. The narrative of 2019 and 2020 was also around building. The narrative of 2024 and 2023, and even so far in 2025, as far as, crypto goes, has not been building as much as it's just been how do we get crypto in front of more people, right? But the problem is in order to really get people to come back, you have to focus on what matters, not these get rich quick things where people just think that they can just get rich trading meme coins and they end up just watching their Satoshi valuation of their portfolio bleed. Okay? So this is something we've talked about a lot. And so going back to this idea over here, we've essentially we essentially have two different categories that people are mostly focused on. The Bitcoin dominance train, where basically the argument is that everything just bleeds back to Bitcoin until there's a sufficient pivot by the Federal Reserve, and meme coins. The problem for the meme coins is that they just collectively bleed back to Bitcoin. Now, I know others does not include the entire cryptoverse. It's just what TradingView is tracking. But it does, reflect a lot of the altcoins. And if the meme coins aren't making it into this, then they're not really going up enough to even be that much of a consideration. I mean, this does at least include a good amount of them, right? A good amount of them. So I think this is like the argument that the cryptoverse is dealing with right now is like, on one hand, you have people in the Bitcoin dominance camp, and they're pretty happy because they got a 6x move by Bitcoin over the last couple of years. And you have people in the meme coin market, and some of them are happy, the ones that got in early, and most of them are mad because they bought, and ever since they bought, the meme coins have just gone down. It's the stuff in between that hasn't really gotten any love. And I mean, fortunately, we've talked about that relentlessly on this channel, that those projects would likely not get any love until there's a pivot by the Fed. The thing that I wonder is, how do we as an industry go from where we are today to where we want to be, right? How do we go back to, the good old days when we focused on development and what I mean, at the end of the day, everyone's here to make money. Let's not kid ourselves. We can say we're in it for the tech all we want, but everyone's here to make money. But also, if you're going to believe in something like crypto, the sort of the thrill I felt about it a decade ago is gone, right? I mean, it's not like the same thing as it was back then, right? Back then it was so new and there was all this like, what's it going to be? Today it's just, what meme coins can we show? And that's the reason why so many people just elect to stick with Bitcoin, because they're just so tired of getting rugged all the time by all these meme coin grifters that just launch and act like a tough guy, put on that persona for everyone, and then get quiet and move on the minute their meme coin goes down. So please understand that there is something, I believe, between meme coins and Bitcoin. I think there is. A lot of people would say there's not. And hey, maybe they're right. I don't know. At this point, I don't really care a whole lot because I've just been on the Bitcoin dominance train. I've been looking for a reason to allocate more into this middle part. of the cryptoverse, right? It's just that quantitative tightening never ended, and I think quantitative tightening never ended because there was so much excess liquidity just sloshing around, not only in the meme coin market, but also in, like, lower market cap stocks and whatnot, that all this is sloshing around. It takes time to unwind it. It takes time for people to believe that meme coins are just going down against Bitcoin. It takes time for people to believe in the Bitcoin dominance rally, right? It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time for people to believe it. This is the cryptoverse healing, just like this was the cryptoverse healing. So remember, alt season doesn't occur historically until alt Bitcoin pairs go to the range lows, right? And this is something I've stressed for the last 3 years. And anytime there's a pump in the altcoin market, everyone is very quick to come out and call me out and be like, well, Ben said there wouldn't be alt season. But since 2021 ended, show me on the chart where alt season was, right? I don't think you could do that. I mean, you could point to a couple of rallies by alt Bitcoin pairs, but that's not alt season, right? This is alt season, right? That's what alt season is, right here. That's alt season. These little rallies that you get in here, this is just, a fool's rally to think that it's alt season, but it's just a lower high. So I wonder if the way to get the cryptoverse back on track is for alt Bitcoin pairs to make that move to the range lows, where they feel helpless and like they don't catch a bid at all. If you're an ETH maxi, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? This ETH Bitcoin stuff we've been tracking on here for what seems like forever. I spent years trying to convince people of this trend. And look how long it took. And now, what do I see when I look around? I just see apathy, right? The people that were really bullish on ETH Bitcoin over here are struggling with it today. And I think ETH has a future. I do. But I also know that last cycle, it didn't actually bottom until quantitative tightening ended, right? That's when it bottomed. I don't know how much lower it's going to go. I hope that the bottom's in soon. But ask them, right? Ask them how this feels, right? It's just almost down only. And it's been down only for a while, right? I mean, really, since May of 2024, it's just basically been down only for ETH Bitcoin. I think that the rest of the altcoin market, and I don't really consider ETH an alt, even though by the strictest definition it is, but I think that the rest of the altcoin market on the Bitcoin pairs needs to feel that same type of helplessness, where people will wonder, where's the bottom? And I think about it like this. If you look at the ETH Bitcoin market cap ratio, do you guys remember how many years I have spent telling you guys that altcoins are oscillators at best against Bitcoin? Look no further than the ETH Bitcoin market cap, right? It tops out anytime ETH's market cap gets about half of Bitcoin's. There was a wick up here, but it tops out around 50%, and it bottoms out around 10 to 13, 14%, right? When it was up here, no one wanted to believe it could come down here. And here we are. I think the same thing is happening with all Bitcoin pairs, right? When they were up here, you couldn't convince anyone they could come back down to the range lows. And the crazy thing is, it's February 2025, and they still haven't gone there. Now, they did just put in a new low last week. This is the thing, like, everyone keeps thinking it's the final low, and then you wait enough time, and it just puts in a new low. I do think that there's a reality where we could see the same thing happen for alt Bitcoin pairs that we're seeing happen for ETH Bitcoin, where you look back at some point in about like 6 months or less, and you just kind of see them that some point, they just lost the narrative and they go to the range lows. And maybe spending some time there will help the Cryptoverse heal and get people to focus on what actually matters, right? And I think it's Bitcoin, and there's some stuff in between Bitcoin and meme coins that I think, could be good and could provide real utility in the future if we can, as an industry, right, if we can figure that stuff out. But you can't blame people for not developing as much over the last 2 years because of all the regulation risk. They don't want to get sued by the SEC. And why slave away coding some project up just to watch people care about meme coins instead? So I think as an industry, we sort of have lost our way this cycle. We've more so focused on how do we get retail back? Like, how can we push this in front of retail rather than building so that retail naturally comes back, right? The .com stuff, if you think about the .com, I mean, the internet was a crazy new addition to our world, right? How do they get people to come back and care? They actually built stuff that mattered, right? That's how they got people to care. They built stuff that mattered, and now no one can imagine life without it, right? Most people can't imagine life without the internet. So maybe that's, what needs to happen at some point in the Cryptoverse is we need to actually come up with useful stuff besides all this meme coin garbage, and then people will come back. But not necessarily because they are just looking to flip a quick profit over a weekend, but because they actually think that the product being offered provides value that they're not going to get elsewhere. That's how you get people to actually come back and stay, and not just come back for a weekend, get rugged, and leave. Because that's what's been happening for the last 3.5 years. And I think, if I spend a lot of time looking at like the others Bitcoin chart, I mean, it certainly seems like people are finally getting the memo. It seems like some of these meme coin rallies aren't lasting as long as they used to, and that they're sort of topping out quicker. So I think that it's certainly possible that narrative could be coming to an end soon as people kind of, they kind of like finally realize what's important. But it's just taken so long, right? It's taken so much longer than I think anyone would imagine. I think the people that probably would find value in this video are the people that didn't like my view of the Bitcoin dominance, but also didn't like the meme coins, right? I think those are the people that this video is going to speak to the most, right? If you didn't subscribe to the Bitcoin dominance narrative we talked about for the last 3 years, and you didn't subscribe to meme coins, and you've been focused on the kind of that in-between stuff, I think this sort of is why that kind of in-between stuff hasn't really done that well. The market hasn't rewarded it, and I think a large part of that is just due to regulation risk back in 2023 and 2024, and also investor goals have certainly changed, and I think a lot of people have just kind of given up on trying to pretend like the thing they launch has value, right? They just go out and say it's a meme coin, so don't have to worry about that at all. But anyways, I just wanted to come out and talk about that. I know this video is probably not going to hit the same way that some of the other videos do, and I'd be surprised if you made it this far. But I did want to go on a little bit of a rant and kind of talk about what I think is going on and why the Bitcoin dominance narrative was such an important narrative to latch onto as early as possible, so that you didn't get stuck in a position where you're looking at all these like middle market cap cryptocurrencies and they just haven't gone anywhere for 3 years. Bitcoin's at 95K. A lot of altcoins are nowhere near their prior all-time highs. That's not necessarily new for this cycle, but I think it is kind of new in the sense that it's February of 2025, and still most altcoins never put in new all-time highs, right? A lot of them don't, but I mean, this cycle, most of them haven't, right? I mean, hardly any of them have gone to new all-time highs. And the ones that have gone to all-time highs have barely swept the all-time highs, right? They haven't even gone that much higher. I mean, if you look at total 3 just by itself, you can see that collectively, right? Collectively, the altcoin market, all it's done is just sweep the prior all-time high at this point. So we'll see what happens, guys. But I did just want to talk a little bit about my views on the market, in the sense that I think there's been this massive misallocation of capital in the cryptoverse to meme coins. And I think that as an industry, we will likely see it go away from that over the next several years, and then hopefully get allocated in a better way. I'm sure the smug meme coin influencers that call for the meme coin super cycle will come up and tell me every reason why I'm wrong. But again, for every one of them that does that, my only retort is show them the others Bitcoin chart and ask them on the chart, show me where the meme coin super cycle is. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and again, check out the sale on Into the Cryptoverse Premium at intothecryptoverse.com. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.